Wallis Simpson's marriage to Edward VIII was shockingly miserable. The story of a calculating social climber from Pennsylvania who managed to claim the title of Duchess and cause England's first abdication in the process has fascinated people for decades. Wallis Simpson, for her part, would have preferred to have been Queen. This desire drove her to pursue Edward VIII in the first place, forging a relationship that appeared rich and romantic to onlookers, but was fraught with deception and opportunism at its core. He was utterly adoring, and she had to put on an act, realizing that he had given up the throne of the greatest empire in order to marry a twice-divorced American. If she kicked him to the curb, she'd be the most reviled woman in British history. A few weeks later, at 42, Edward gave up the throne to be with Wallis, who was 40 and still married. She had mistakenly believed that she could somehow ascend to the throne, and had a simple comment for Edward: "You goddamned fool." Wallis, incensed that she would never be queen, kept up appearances, pretending to cherish the smitten Edward when she really loved someone else. For years she was drawn to the married American and dear friend Herman Rogers, though she never managed to make him a lover. 2 days before she wed Edward, she even offered to have Herman's baby. Though Wallis and Edward remained married for the duration of their lives, privately their union deteriorated. Having been cut off from the royal family, Wallis, who received death threats in the mail and was harassed in public, and Edward were typically short on money, something that women of the day could not tolerate. Said one, "They will have no country and he no job. Can any love exist or be nourished on this slender fare?" What wasn't entirely clear to outsiders was that Wallis was not interested in nourishing any such affection with her husband. With Edward, her cruel streak was in full force, and he now had a lifetime to experience. Her sharp tongue, wild temper, wounding criticism and utter self-absorption. In addition to the money-grubbing, distrust, and outright degradation that characterized their isolated existence, Edward was viewed as an anti-Semite and Nazi sympathizer, and Wallis went along. Evidence first emerged in 1937 when they traveled to Germany, taking tea with Hitler at his mountain lair in Bavaria. Trips to the US were subsequently cancelled, and what friends they had were horrified by their poor judgment. Edward was rendered a coward, a poor little man, and she, wretched and egocentric. Their beliefs in some of Hitler's ideology further isolated them as the years went on. Later, when Hermann remarried in 1950, after his first wife's death, a jealous Wallis lost her self-restraint and caroused publicly in France with a young heir to the Woolworth fortune, whose mother had funded the Windsors' lifestyle. "Once my ambition was to be Queen of England. Now it's to get Jessie Donahue drunk," said Wallis of her rich friend. By the 1960s, no one much cared about the pair. Edward again asked the Queen if Wallis could have the Royal Highness title, and was shot down. She was, though, despite the scandal, buried next to Edward at Frogmore Estate in Windsor, as is customary. He died in 1972 at age 77, and she in 1986 at 89, after suffering from dementia and living in seclusion.